Hello, dreamers. Welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I have a very special guest today. His name, if you don't know him, is James Hill. James Hill is the founder of Black Millionaires. It's a media company that he created to showcase current and future Black millionaires. And today the platform has grown to almost 1 million people. And on the platform, his team share positive, uplifting content related to financial literacy. James started his career as a mortgage loan originator, and now he is a champion for financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and overall corporate leadership. James, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate you for having me on. I look forward to adding value to your audience, just highlighting some of the stuff that we do here at Black Millionaires.
Love it. Just to get started, just tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
I'm from the east side of Detroit. I had a rough neighborhood I grew up in, so school was kind of my outlet, school and sports. When I was 18, I decided I wasn't going to go to college, so I worked at a factory, and I did that for about 4 to 5 months, and I realized that I do not want to work at this factory, right? So saved up a bunch of money and told my family I was going to college. I actually did go to college. I graduated from Saginaw Valley with a communications and marketing degree. I used to love writing and I love money. It was either going to be journalism or something to do with finance. I couldn't get a job in journalism. And then I actually got offered a job, but it was for $28,000 to move in the hood of Baltimore where they shot the wire at. And I'm like, no, I'm not.
After your college degree?
Yes, after I got my college degree, and I'm like, nah, that like 28,000 to move. I'm like, nah. I eventually landed a job as a mortgage banker at Quicken loans. And as a banker, I was licensed in 18 states across the country to do mortgages, help hundreds and thousands of families purchase their first home or just refinance or just acquire real estate. The way I got to becoming an entrepreneur, and I never really wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew about hustling and investing and stuff like that. But I thought my road to wealth, my path to destination millionaire, whatever you want to call it, I thought I was going to work at a company, get some equity in the company, and when it gets sold, I actually cash out an investment. That was my whole plan. I wanted to work at a startup. I didn't get a job at a startup. Obviously, I went and worked for a huge company, which was Quicken Loans, and I saved about $30,000 or $40,000.
You're the first person in your family to graduate college. I want to hear about what that was like.
That experience was very tough because, for one, when I was in high school, I used to buy my own clothes because I used to make my own money. I had a lot of clothes. I stayed in my grandmother's basement. That's where I kind of grew up at. Me and my brothers shared rooms. And our basement flooded. All of my clothes that I wore throughout the years, all of my shoes and everything was gone. We obviously didn't have insurance and things like that. So my senior year was very tough. I had to figure out how to get my own clothes and own shoes and everything back up to par. Because of that, I put off college. That's why I didn't really want to go to college anymore, because I was like, I'm not going to college because I need to stack my money because I'm broke. And then when I told my family that I wanted to go to college, no one believed me. And it was like a negative thing because I was making money and they're like, all right, you got to help us with these bills. You got to do this. None of them ever experienced college. So they like, what are you doing? We don't even believe you. It was like a day before I left off to college when I was like, I'm going to college. I need a ride. Because it was like 2 hours north of Detroit. And I'm like, I need a ride to school. And they're like, a ride for what? They're like, where are you going to stay at? I'm like, oh, well, I got a dorm. They didn't understand. I convinced my dad to take my auntie's car while she was at work. And he drove me up there and dropped me off. And, you know, I was on my own since then. Now, college was really tough because I didn't understand the landscape of college. I only went one semester for the first year. When I got up there, my FAFSA only covered for half the year. So I was a semester behind or whatever, or a semester late based on traditional college route. The next year, I didn't understand I had to redo my FAFSA. I got up there and they dropped all my classes and they gave my dorm away, and my dad dropped me off and was halfway back home, and I was basically homeless. I had all my stuff sitting on the side of the road. I didn't know anybody really like that. And I was just homeless. Basically, I convinced some white boys to take my clothes and everything that I had and sit it in the gym. And they put it in their gym locker. And then they just told me where I could go in terms of the dorms and in terms of the housing office and all that, because I never knew where any of that stuff was at.
How did you pay for tuition since you did?
Well, I had student loans and I had FAFSA. I never went to the office because I started a semester late. So they just rushed me into everything. I didn't have the full tour college experience. I never saw Saginaw Valley until the day I actually got dropped off there. I never saw anything. I ended up homeless in college, and that changed my life forever. because I realized everything was on me. A lot of things happened to me. I grew up really fast and I really had to start managing my money correctly because at first I was just a hustler, make enough money, spend it. But then I realized I had to start saving. I had to start investing. I had to start putting my money to work in places that benefit me instead of just blowing it on parties and stuff like that, like I did my first semester. And that changed my life forever. After that, I really got into journalism and started realizing my calling was writing and communicating. And that's how I started getting the jobs at English tutors, journalism. And that's ultimately how I landed the job at Quicken Loans because of my writing and public speaking ability. They're like, oh, you would be a good banker. I got an internship there first. And they tried to get me to drop out of college. And I was like, no, I got a year left. So I came back and finished. And then I went off to Quicken Loans.
You went from working at Quicken Loans to starting this amazing platform. I know before we started recording, you mentioned that you weren't really planning on becoming an entrepreneur, but you were exposed to Better, and that made you want to get into entrepreneurship. Can you tell me more about that?
Are you familiar with March Madness in NCAA? Yes. So at Quicken Loans, they have something called March Madness where you work for 30 days straight. You work every single day, 8 to 9 hours for 30 days straight. There's this tournament that whoever wins, the top 5 people get like a $15,000 bonus. And if you win, you're obviously going to make a bunch of money because you actually get your bonus. You get a $15,000 bonus. You get a paid for trip with you and your family, you and like 4 people from your family. So you, your kids, your wife, or your husband, or whoever you're with. I was trying to get that because I never really traveled like that. So I really love to travel. And I was number 6. So I lost. I was the first loser. And that really pissed me off because I worked 30 days straight for someone else. And I was in there every day at 8 a.m. and I left every day at 8 p.m. because I stayed in a loft condo right next to where I used to work. So I used to literally get up, shower, and walk to work. I was there every single day. But the thing was, I was the youngest person in like the top 20. I'm 28 right now. At that time, I was 22, 23. They're like, wow, man, like you're really killing it. And they gave me a pat on the back and I just stormed out because I was mad. Because I'm like, I didn't work this hard just to get a pat on the back. The next day, the senior vice president came up to me and was like, hey, we seen you working hard. Dan Gilbert, he owns the Cleveland Cavaliers. We know LeBron James is your favorite player. So we're going to give you some tickets to go see LeBron James. I just like, all right. And Quicken Loans owns the Cleveland Cavaliers. The owner of the Cavaliers is the owner of Quicken Loans, just to give people some perspective. I'm like, all right, I didn't think none of it. And I'm from Detroit. I'm from the east side. When you come from a small neighborhood, you don't think big. In my mind, I'm thinking, oh, Cleveland is 3.5 hours, 4 hours away from Detroit. I'm thinking we're going to drive. That's my first thing. We get in the car and I'm like, okay, we're going to drive there. And we went under some tunnel and came out and we was at a private plane airport. And I'm like, what's going on? So we got on a private jet. It took us 18 minutes to get from downtown Detroit to downtown Cleveland. I sat courtside, basically almost arm's length away from LeBron James. I wish I could show you all these pictures and everything. It was amazing. We had a suite with all you can eat food. It was just the best experience of my entire life. I left that experience depressed because just last night I was in the hood paying my grandmother's bills. And the next day I'm on a private jet with billionaires, the owners of the Cavaliers. I'm talking to the CEO. I'm sitting courtside. I didn't get to meet LeBron James. They were playing the Spurs. So I met Greg Popovich. I met a lot of the Spurs players. And it was just overall amazing. We shot on the basketball court. So I was depressed. And then I was like, I couldn't work for them anymore. Because I realized if I wanted to own a jet, I wasn't going to be able to own a jet working for him. I was going to have to create my own destiny.
Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah, imagine you're married or you're dating and you see a text message come to your spouse's phone and you're like, I saw that. You can't just unsee that. You're going to be like, I got to question him about that, or I got to question her about that. What was that about? I couldn't unsee the fact that there was people living so much better out here and there was another life. I was depressed. So the next 2 months I went to work and I just wasn't the same. And everybody noticed it. And they was like, man, what happened to you, man? Like you used to be the most upbeat, hardworking person. And now you're in here just being rude to the customers. I didn't really want to be there anymore. And then I saved up my money and I didn't do an exit interview or nothing. I just wrote an email and said, I'm not coming in. I'm going to start my own business. They basically laughed at me and was like, haha, you'll be back or whatever. People do this all the time. And then I went to live with my sister because I got out of my condo. My lease was up And then I lived with my sister for 2 weeks and I saved up, paid off all my debts. I paid off my car and drove down to Atlanta. And I'd never been to Atlanta before. I just knew I wanted to move. I knew I wanted to start something new. I'd never been to Atlanta. I literally got in the car, drove down there, had no plans, and I figured it out.
I know earlier you mentioned that first business didn't quite work out. Invested a lot of money, lost a lot of money. What's the biggest lesson you learned from that?
Well, one of the things I learned from failing and having a failing business first or a failing brand first is you can't be afraid to put your money where your mouth is and advertise your business. I was one of those people that bragged about not marketing, not promoting, not paying for ads, not collaborating with other people, getting it out of the mud, being self-made, because I had pulled myself up from my own bootstraps, quote unquote, through college. I was homeless. I got the job, put myself through school. So that was my mentality. But one thing I learned is what it takes you a year to do on your own, you can do in a week with 10 other people or 5 other people. The platform was all about me and my journey and my expertise. And I made the switch when I started Black Millionaires to a collective group in the community. It's not called Black Millionaire, it's called Black Millionaires for a reason, because it's about the collective community in the group. And I realized that our community doesn't need one billionaire, we need 1,000 millionaires, right? That's where the real wage gap in the net worth, that's where the real problem is in our community. Jeff Bezos is going to be Jeff Bezos. Jay-Z is going to be Jay-Z, $2-3 billion. The problem is we don't have enough people in that middle class or that multi-million-dollar status that can actually fund and finance people to pull them from poverty. And that's what I realized with my first business, just working together and not trying to be self-made. That's why my platform now is all about the community, promoting and uplifting other people. I don't really share my story that much on my platform, and that's deliberate.
You were able to go from that first platform not working out to building this amazing platform, highlighting current, future Black millionaires. Can you tell me, because sometimes we always hear, before you become a millionaire, you actually become a millionaire, you have to become a millionaire in your mind.
Yes.
Right? What are some of the habits that you've had to adapt to get there?
Your vision, what you dream about, what you think about, comes from what you do every day, what you consume. If I'm consuming podcasts about business, if I'm watching television about business, if I'm reading books about business, that opens up my mind to dream bigger. And those dreams and those visions spur my actions, and my actions determine where I'm actually going to go. One thing I learned is millionaires and people who are successful and wealthy, they don't allow themselves to consume things that doesn't align with their end goal. If your end goal is to become a multimillionaire, even if you are broke right now, you can't be consuming content that doesn't allow you to get there. You need to read books, you need to study, and you need to be around people that can help you get to where you want to go. You know how they say dress for the job you want, not for the job you have. You have to think and act for the career you want and the net worth you want, not for the net worth you have. Because where you are at today is based on the decisions you made last year, not the decisions you made last night. The decisions you make last night are going to propel you next year where you're going to be at. So yes, you do become a millionaire internally in your mindset and your actions before you actually start receiving the money. And that's good, because if you receive the money before you actually become a millionaire internally, you're going to lose it and you're going to blow it. We see this happen with athletes, entertainers, people who win the lottery. It happens every single day because your mind and your money has to be aligned in order for you to keep it. I read this in a book and I'm going to try to explain it the best way I can because it changed the way I looked at money. You never go above or below your level of money, your self-concept and level of money. Right now, you've been a CPA, you're a journalist, you're financially literate. Let's say you lose everything. You're going to start scrambling. You're going to work 10, 20-hour days to get to that level back to where you were once at. But once you get to that level of your self-concept, you're going to become comfortable because that's where you're at. But let's say you get $100 million tomorrow. That's so above your level of self-concept, you're just going to start blowing the money. You're just buying anything, Birkin bags, you know, they're just paying for everybody to go on trips and all of this. your level, you never go above or beyond 10% of your level of self-concept. When you go above it, you start splurging and spending the money. When you go below it, you start scrambling and hustling to get back to that level. One of the things you do in order to make yourself ready to receive the money is you have to continue to feed your mind and study and be around people and be comfortable with having that amount of money. Let me give you an example.
Love that.
The first time I made an investment and I made about $30,000 or $40,000 just from an investment out of the stock market, made a good investment. It went up. I made about $40,000. One of my mentors was like, don't spend that money for 6 months. Just let it sit in the bank. And I'm like, why would I do that? This was probably like 2019. I'm like, why would I do that? What are you talking about? And he was basically trying to train me on this whole concept I'm saying. If I get used to having 50, 60, 100,000 in my bank account, then my level of self-concept is going to go up. But because I wasn't used to having that type of money, my first initial thing to do was to go scramble and buy something and buy this and buy that. Now, if I have $100,000 in the bank, it's a normal day. But most people, if they get that type of money, instantly are going to start thinking about scrambling and spending that money and blowing this, and they're going to become very friendly, and they get all these new cousins and friends, and they got an entourage. And we see it every day with rappers, with athletes, with people who blow their money is because one day they was in the hood or one day they was in college. They're good at playing basketball. And because of that, now they got $100 million contract. Their level of money has not risen, not one bit.
You see that with people who win the lottery too, right? It's such a great point. You have to elevate in terms of what you know about money and wealth so that you can be a good steward of that money.
Correct. Because if you don't, you're going to throw it away. You're going to give it away. You're going to spend it. Your mind is going to justify some of these dumb purchases. Oh, man, I deserve a $30,000 Birkin bag. I deserve a trip to Turks and Caicos. Me and my family, we've been working hard, so I deserve to take everybody to Amsterdam. You're going to start justifying all of these purchases. And once you go broke, you think you're going to keep the money forever, and it doesn't work like that. You got to invest the money and learn how to be a steward of it.
That's good advice. You're really good when it comes to brand building, right? You've been able to build a 7-figure brand leveraging social media. Mm-hmm. Which strategies do you recommend that people apply if they want to build a brand and be able to generate money from that?
This is going to sound crazy because it seems like I'm the analytical guy and I watch the numbers and I look at the followers and I look at the engagement. But the thing that helped me out was to stop scoreboard watching. Now, you have to scoreboard watch when it comes to your money because you have to know when your wealth is growing, track your net worth. But when it comes to business and branding, it's different. And social media is different. Stop scoreboard watching. Just put out the content. So if you looked at every single podcast and looked at all your downloads and looked at you might get discouraged because it goes from 100 downloads to 150 to 200, and it might not be growing as fast as you actually want it to do. I would tell people to stop scoreboard watching, just put out the content, get better and better at your craft and focus and dedicate your mind and commit your mind to say, I'm gonna do this for 5 years. And if it don't work in 5 years, I'm done. The reason you wanna do that is because when you think long-term, your day-to-day actions doesn't affect you as much if you're not seeing that much progress. But if you're thinking about, I gotta blow up in 6 months and you don't blow up after a week or two, you might give up. What I would say with people on social media is stop scoreboard watching. Stop looking at how many followers you got. Do things you can control. If you can post 3 times a day, just do that. Just focus on doing those actions that you actually can control. And everybody's going to have their 15 seconds of fame on social media. It's literally how the algorithm works. I'm sure you didn't had a post over the last year that did exceptionally well and better than the last other post. That's how it works. But here's what happens. What happens if you've been posting for a year or two and then you go viral? Now you got all these new eyeballs on your platform. They can go back and listen to all your other episodes, look at all your other content. And they're going to say, wow, she actually has a brand. But what if you're scoreboard watching and every time you make a post, they don't do well, you delete it, you take it down. And then you go viral and everybody come to your page and say, oh, this person just started out. They ain't got no business. They're not going to stay around to watch you build. They want to already see you build once you go viral. Everybody's out here trying to figure out how to go viral and crack the algorithm. The best thing you can do is be the turtle and grow slow every single day. And eventually, boom, you're going to have that big boost. Because if you are constantly posting on social media, the algorithm is literally going to reward you because that is how they make money. That's how Instagram make money. That's how YouTube make money. That's how Facebook make money. That's how Twitter make money, by user-generated content. Stop scoreboard watching. That's my number one thing that I learned from my first brand, that I was scoreboard watching and I was trying to be perfect. And then on Black Millionaires, I just started putting out good quality content. And if you go to my first year of my content, it wasn't as good as it is now. Now we have a system and I literally know what's going to go viral versus what's not going to do as good to grow my brand. But at first, it wasn't always like that.
You have to be consistent and we have to think long term, right?
Correct.
Are you able to share any other actionable steps that the dreamers can take now to be able to leverage social media to build their brand?
Yes. So here's something I teach people who always ask, how can I level up? How can I take my brand to the next level? What you can do yourself is small compared to what you can do with other people. You have to learn how to collaborate and network. The mistake people make when they're collaborating is they want to collaborate up. Everybody want to interview Tyler Perry. Everybody want to interview Oprah. Everybody want to interview LeBron James because these people are going to bring a new audience to you. But no one thinks about networking across or networking down. I call it the law of 33. Network up 33% of the time, network across 33% of the time, and you got to mentor and show other people the way, so network down 33% of the time. Because when you're networking down, you don't realize how much information and how much knowledge you have until you start to teach it. A lot of times it's good to mentor people and teach them because you're going to shock yourself and be like, wow, I wasn't conscious that I knew that much about my industry. And then you want to network across because those are your peers. Those are the people that you're on a level playing field with. Y'all can actually add value to each other across and sharpen your skills. Because if you're always the mentee, if you're always the smallest person in the room, you're not going to build up that confidence you need to actually succeed in business. I know that sounds crazy because people always talk about you want to be the dumbest person in the room. Not always. You want to be in the room to learn from the big wigs, but then take that back to something and do something practical with your business. I would tell people to start networking across, networking down, and then networking up. Don't network up first because you might not have enough value to add to that person. You might only get one shot with the person to impress them. And once you show them that you're not really that much value to them, they're going to move on and get someone else. I hope that's practical for people because that's something, when I learned that, it really helped me start to expand my network.
I think this is great too, because as you mentioned, most people want to network up, but you measure your impact by how many people you're actually able to bring on this journey with you or positively influence. It makes sense to network down. And why wouldn't you network with the people who are at your level so that you can help each other grow? So I think this makes perfect sense, actually.
The reason a lot of people don't want to network across is because they don't want to face reality. The reality is a lot of people aren't as big as they really perceive in their head. If they think they're there, but the reality is they're here, they're going to have a false perception of reality in their real life. So when they look across from people, they think they're bigger than they actually are. And they think they're equal to some of the big wigs and some of the big people. And it's like, nah, it's not actually even. You need to work with this person. But a lot of people don't want to face reality. And that's one thing I had to do, just trying to grow a media company. I'm still a startup. No matter how much revenue I make or how much clout I get on social media or throwing a conference or whatever, I'm still a startup. I haven't been in business 40 years. I haven't been in business 30 years. I have to understand my positioning when I'm networking with people. Even though I have a successful, quote unquote, startup that's doing well, I don't have a track record of 50 years of doing well. I still have to put my work in every single day and network up, across, and down because it can all go away tomorrow. And here I am acting like I'm bigger than I am. I think a lot of people have that issue, especially with social media, because you can look at these followers and followers don't always equal impact because it's people with brands just as big as mine who can get 1,000 people in a room at a conference because people don't respect them enough to come hear what they actually have to say.
Love that. How are you investing to build more wealth for the future?
I'm so enthralled into my company that I have to use my money to make money. I can't invest in something that's going to require my time. Obviously, I love investing in the stock market because that's just a passive way to grow your wealth. And I love reading about stocks and stuff like that. So I might as well invest in the stock market if I'm reading about it. One of the things I did just get into is I worked in the trucking industry for 2 months, so I understood it. I have 18-wheelers on the road right now. I have somebody managing it. and it produces passive income for me. And that's just really parking money I had in the bank that I just was like, hey, I'm gonna park this money somewhere else. And I started generating just revenue and passive revenue from that. That's really good. And I always tell people, don't try to grow 3 or 4 businesses at once. If you can't vertically integrate that new company into your actual brand, then don't go out and start it. Use your money to passively grow. I would rather make $1,000 passively than $2,500 where I got to dedicate my time. That's my mentality now in terms of growing my wealth and in terms of building, but I'm so focused on growing my media company. That's where all my time, energy goes to. But the money that I do make, I park it in different investments like the stock market. And I know the trucking industry a little bit. I know it enough to invest in it. I invested in that. That's one thing. I lease my space right now in my office. But once this is up, I'm working with a realtor right now to be able to buy a commercial space. And that's, again, vertical integration with the investments. I need a commercial space anyway, because my brand is continuing to grow. I'm looking at buying the building that I'm going to be in. That's just other passive ways that I invest my money and that I plan to invest in the future, trying to do things that I can use my money to make money, or I can vertically integrate in what I'm already doing, because I don't want to start a new business. I want to integrate in what I'm already doing.
Got it. So James, I always end the interview with a round of rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Just tell me the first thing that comes to mind. What's a book that changed your perspective on life?
The Richest Man in Babylon. That's a really good book. I love that book. It broke down finance principles, very practical.
What's one life lesson you had to learn the hard way?
That everybody isn't really rooting for you.
What's one thing about money you wish you could tell your younger self?
That the man who works for money or the man who goes to work has no time to make money. Everybody doesn't want to be a millionaire. But if you're somebody out there and you're listening to this and you want to reach one of those levels of status, you can't actually physically work yourself there. You're going to have to invest your way and delegate and collaborate your way there. You only can work so much. You got to figure out how to leverage your mind, your skills, and your ability to get more done in less time.
What's the best investment in yourself you've made so far?
I would say my teeth. I got my teeth done when I hit a milestone in my business. People don't realize how much their image impacts the level of network they have. So I would say invest in your image. Investing in my teeth was a real good investment for me.
Filling the blank with 3 words or less. Money to me is
a tool, I would say.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I want my legacy to be about how many people I actually helped and impacted.
James, where can the dreamers go to find out more about all this great work that you're doing?
You can follow me on Instagram at James Hill TV personally. And if you want to follow my brand, it's Black Millionaires _ across pretty much all platforms. I really appreciate you for inviting me on. Asked a lot of amazing questions. You opened me up. I was telling stories that I ain't never told nobody. So I really appreciate you for providing this platform and everything you do. If people want to connect with me, Black Millionaires or James Hill TV is the best way.
Thank you, James. This has been a very good interview. Thanks for sharing some good information with the dreamers. And thank you.
All right, I appreciate you.
All right, that was James Hill. I hope you enjoyed it. I suggest that you stay tuned. And if you want to see more of this content, watch this episode with Cedric Nash. All right, that's it for today. I'll see you back here next week for another episode of the Dreamers Podcast.